autumn breeze. Dead leaves beneath my feet. A long walk home. A long walk home. Broken knees, prepared for defeat. One chance to escape. A single chance of escape. Clouds below, swirling trends, a chill upon the lips, warm within the blood. The only sound left is this steady drip, and the only sound left is this steady.
All right, I think we're live. Hello, everyone. This is Thursday, November the 5th, and this should be the last part of our animating a Fresco character inside of Adobe Animate. So we drew this character inside of Fresco on the iPad Pro, and then because Fresco saves its files as Photoshop cloud-based documents, we were able to open that up on Photoshop on the desktop. We did a little coloring, we did a little cleaning, and then we brought that Photoshop document into Animate. And as it came into Animate, we've got all these different pieces. So if I just select all, we can see all the different pieces of this character's body. And using the bone tool inside of Animate, we were able to draw out these bones. So let's go way in there, see that? And all these little bones have different constraints on them and so forth. And with that done, we were able to actually rig this guy together. So what we're going to do today is to use the free transform tool to sort of complete this rigging and make sure it's all good. And then we're going to just sort of animate this character in some way. It should be a pretty quick wrap up to this small series. This is part 3. And what I'm going to do, first of all, is just zoom in like 200%. So, you know, as you draw bones out, if you remember from last time, if you go to view and you choose snapping, I turned all my snapping off. So it's all completely disabled. And the reason I do that is so that I can more organically draw my bones out. Because if I don't do it that way, what's going to happen is it's going to actually go through and snap to grid lines, snap to guides, snap to objects, all sorts of things that I don't necessarily want. So I disable all that. Most of the time I do like to have guides enabled. I like the snapping, But in this case, when I'm using the bone tool and I'm rigging a character, I do not want that. So when you actually drag these out, the point which you drag it out can be actually changed, not with the bone tool itself, but with the free transform tool, because the joint to the bone tool actually works with the free transform or the transform point right here. So I can go ahead and make sure that all of these are actually proper. I want to make sure they're each at the joints where they're supposed to be. And that goes for all this stuff. Like a lot of things inside of Animate and other applications, you can go through and, you can do your stuff out roughly at first. And then once you've got everything set up, you can then go in and do things like this to sort of really refine how these things are going to work. So let's see. So we got a couple people watching live, which is great. Hi to everyone. If you do have any questions or any comments, please let me know in the chat, and I will be monitoring the chat. I'll try to respond to anything that you've got going on here. We could, of course, even adjust the center point for our pelvis and our torso and so forth, but I think it probably looks pretty good like it is. And with the few small adjustments that I've done here, I'm going to go ahead and say that this is probably okay to start animating. So if you remember from last time, I was thinking we would animate this from sort of behind this tree right here. And in order to do that, there's a couple of different things we could try. One thing is that we could split this background up into foreground and background, and then have him emerge from behind there. Another thing we could do is simply mask him out, but I kind of like the foreground, background type of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer and rename this to foreground. And in my woods layer, I'm simply going to select my bitmap object. And then in my foreground layer, right click and choose to, oh, and it keeps doing that. I'm going to lock that background woods layer down because I want to go ahead and, let's try that again. Copy that. Copy. And in my foreground layer, there we go. Paste in place. So now I have a copy of the foreground layer above my armature layer and above the woods layer. And what I want to do is actually cut some of this off. So let's actually go ahead and mask that. To create my mask, there's a couple different ways to do it, right? So the easiest way is just to use your rectangle tool and draw out a rectangle. So I'm going to create a new layer above my foreground layer. Let's lock that down so I don't mess with it too much. And inside of here, let's go out 75%. What I'm going to do with my tool, this is my rectangle tool. I want to change my fill color to green. Look at that, Catalina's being difficult again. Then I can draw out a basic mask right there. Actually, I'm doing this the inverse of what I need to do. I want to... No, that was right. I want to show everything here because it's going to work as an overlay. So I'm going to draw out that mask. And then from here, I can go ahead and adjust things, or I can choose my classic brush tool, increase the size of that, and then just start drawing in until I sort of draw over this tree right here. There we go. That gives me a nice mask for that tree. And what I need to do now is actually create this as a mask. So on layer 2, I'm going to rename this to tree mask. And then right click on tree mask and choose the mask option. This goes ahead and creates my tree mask layer as an actual mask. And it puts the foreground layer within it, which basically covers up anything that's outside of that mask. For my armature layer, let's go ahead and unlock that. I'm going to select all my different assets that make up this armature. And if I shift and arrow key over, there he goes. That's pretty cool. It actually shows the armature through the mask, devoid of the actual visual assets that are part of that armature. And that's pretty cool. I didn't actually know that that would happen. So now that I've got him over there, we need to start animating him. Let's go ahead and make like 3 seconds of content here in our timeline. I'm going to insert frames up to 3 seconds. And what we want to start doing is actually dragging out different pieces. And you need to think about sort of how this guy would actually move, right? So his leg is going to move out like this. The knee's going to bend. And notice that creates a new pose right here in my armature layer. And if I go between the two, you can't really see it because it's hidden, it's obscured. But if I make that invisible, you can see he lifts his leg up here. It gets a little odd. Let's fix his foot. Hold down that shift key to only drag or rotate the foot. There we go. So he lifts that up. He probably is going to also shift his body somewhat. So I'm going to shift him over and keep his leg right there. Because as he shifts his body, that one leg should stay planted just like that. So that is pretty good right there. He keeps that one foot planted on the ground and uses the other to start stepping. Around here, he'll actually step down. That's pretty good. Now, what we can do too is we can actually create this little walk cycle here. If we just want him to walk across the little street here. Not really street, across the little path. So we can create that walk cycle and then copy and paste the poses to recreate them, to repeat them. So you don't necessarily have to, do each and every one. So there he stepped down, lifts up his leg, steps down. So now he has to do the opposite, right? He has to lift up this other leg right here. And just the way I have him drawn, it's going to look a little bit weird. He's not in exactly the right place to do that. We have to remember that this leg right here is in the center of that tree trunk. So I'm going to shift his body over a little bit. It's looking pretty good. Let's put his little hand out there. And then he's going to step down. I'm going to have a look here and see who we've got. Anybody live, welcome. And please go ahead and post anything in the chat that you might want to be of interest. So now it's the inverse, right? Before this was the anchor. And now this foot is going to be the anchor in the middle of that tree right there. So as we shift him again, what we're going to do is pull that down and anchor it right where it was, but put a little more weight on it. Now, I'm holding down the shift key just to move individual bones, in case you are wondering. Now, I'd like to make his head wobble a little bit as he walks. Pretty good. And this is basically it, right? So he just keeps walking like this, and we just keep alternating. We just have to keep in mind which foot is planted on the ground at which time. So now he's going to stretch his leg out again. And this foot is the one that's going to be planted there. I just want his arms to sort of shift around and move with everything else. There he goes, making that step. And then he puts his foot down. And again, just little bits of movement in the head and the arms is going to add a little bit of shambling realism to the whole thing. So right foot. Next is the left foot. So we're going to keep the right foot planted again. And, you know, I mean, this stuff is, you know, not going to lie here. It's a bit tedious. Move that over. And then shifting that over. Always think about weight, right? And that just shifted over. I did that by mistake. There we go. And you just sort of make your character move however you think it should move. Since we rigged this guy really nice, he moves really nice. Very natural movement. He's a bit of a shambler, but that's okay. It's to be expected. Now, since he's actually emerged from the tree, we can actually turn our mask back on, right? And we can see how this looks. So here he comes out from underneath the tree. Real nice. That's pretty creepy. Let's see this in real time. Yeah, so I mean, you know, we've been working on this for about 20 minutes, and this is what we got. And it looks really good. It's effective, but, you know, this sort of animation does take a long time to produce. Here we're going to make sure to lock this leg to that side of the tree. Let's have him lurch a little more just to speed things up a bit. Maybe he's really excited. Maybe he sees something he wants to eat, right? Yeah, look at that. So we got left anchored. And if you notice, I put him a little bit down there so I can do this more effectively. That sometimes helps with movement, and it also helps with realism as well. Because as people walk, right, or whatever he is, as anything walks, it has sort of a gait to it, right? There he is coming out from the tree. This is actually coming out better than I thought it would, which is very pleasing. So we got to remember the foot is planted right there at the edge of the path. Let's bring him up a little bit. Edge of the path. Rest that foot. Let's have him actually, like... Because I could do this for the next hour, and we could get a whole 3 or 4 seconds of animation out of him, right? But let's go ahead and just make him sort of, like, fall.
Unmercifully reciting the promises of death.
So he's going to stumble a bit here and collapse into a mess. Because I put these constraints on him, right? He's going to be so constrained. But I do want to give... Let's have his hand rest right here. Have him fall backwards a bit. Maybe move that pose a little bit over.
The years express these truths. All point toward the inevitable cold of the grave.
We'll just shift those over a bit there. So at the end, let's go ahead and copy this last pose. I'm going to right click and choose copy pose. Let's paste pose right here. And I'll have the head just kind of drop. All right. Let's see this thing from beginning to end. I'm going to go ahead and hit return. Really nice. Okay. We can also, of course, because we are dealing with an ActionScript 3.0 document, I can go ahead and test movie. Pretty cool. All right. There's our skeleton again. I want to add another second to this. So I'm going to go to 4 seconds, insert frames. Take it to 5 seconds. And again, if you're just joining us live, feel free to note anything on your mind in the chat. I do monitor the chat in my streams, and I try to respond to anything that is stated. So what might make this a little bit more fun is if we added some camera movement. So I'm going to go ahead and enable my document level camera. And at the beginning here, let's actually zoom in a bit. Just a little. And towards the 10-second mark, I'm going to insert a keyframe. And we'll zoom out. As he emerges, we want to insert another keyframe here to hold that pose of the camera. And again, we'll just zoom in a little bit and maybe pan over to him. As he falls, we'll do a quick zoom and pan. Then for each of these sort of little sequences, hey Hannah, how are you? Finally finishing this guy up here. Late at night. Let's create a classic tween there. And right here. And finally, at the beginning right here. So now it looks like this. Not that smooth, right? It's a little janky. And actually towards the end here, it might be fun to let's go ahead and just kind of do a zoom in on his poor little collapsed body here. Put another classic tween. We'll do a test movie. Oh, that's sad. So I gotta smooth those out quite a bit, but before I do that, this at the beginning makes no sense whatsoever. I'm gonna remove this keyframe right here. And actually, for those that don't know, you can actually edit this toolbar now instead of Animate 2021. So if I go here to the timeline menu, I can choose Customize Timeline Tools. And I can add stuff in here like Remove Frames button. Boop. There we go. So I now have a Remove Frames button. But it only removes frames, doesn't remove keyframes. So that's unfortunate. Do we have a Remove Keyframes button? Or Clear Keyframe? We've got insert, insert blank, insert frame. Yeah, what would be really good is to have a button to clear keyframe, but since that doesn't exist, we'll have to right click on that keyframe and choose clear keyframe. And then it's gone. So let's add some additional eases to this because right now it's pretty janky. I'm going to choose the first tween span here, and instead of a classic ease, let's do a nice ease in. And I want it to be pretty dramatic. Let's do a quart ease in. This guy here, the camera is going to go in like that. I think for here, let's do an ease out. Let's just do a normal quad. And then this guy, I want to be really snappy, so. Cubic. The one at the end, I want to be a nice ease in, very slow ease in. Let's do a sign. And test movie once again. All right. I hear everybody saying there's too much camera work. It's too fast. And you know what? Easy enough. Just disable the camera and go ahead and test movie again. So I'm wondering if maybe I like that last sort of camera movement where it kind of zooms in on him a little bit after he collapses. So what I'm going to do is turn my camera back on. I'm just going to get rid of all this camera movement right here. Just clear those keyframes out. Remove that classic tween. And insert a new one right here. And recreate that ease in sign. Let's test it one more time. It's good, except for the camera being off at the start. So here on this keyframe, tool, camera settings. There we go. Reset those camera settings. And on this first keyframe as well, go to our tool, reset, reset, save, and play. Make that a little more lengthy. And let's add some more buffer to the end of this. I think that's going to be pretty good. Let's test it again. All right, that's cool. I like that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a couple things here. Now that we've got this guy created, I am going to go to my, let's see, how should I do this? So I want to export my character with his full animation set. And in order to do that, what I would need to do is have him be a complete symbol, which he isn't right now. He's just on a layer. So what I'm going to do is right-click on this layer, my armature layer, and choose this new feature inside of Animate 2021. Convert layers to symbol. I'm going to name this symbol Creeper. Movie clip, that's fine. You could also do graphic symbol. That would work too. And OK. So because it's a graphic symbol, it's completely in line with the main timeline. So if I preview it, it looks great, right? But I've also got right here, if I turn this option off, the full creeper video, or video, animation right here. And if I right click on this, I can choose to save this as an asset or export it as an asset. So if I export asset, this is going to make it available as an animate asset file for anyone to use. So I can choose to include the motion, the bones, the objects. And I'm not going to include the motion for this. I'm just going to include the objects and the bones. So this will be a static rigged object, which means that anybody can then take this and place it into their animate project and actually animate him. So keywords, creeper, spooky, maybe my name, Lebrac. So these tags are different ways that you can find things inside your assets panel once it's actually incorporated in there. I'm going to hit export and put it in my downloads as creeper.ana. ANA is a animate asset file. Perfect. So I'm going to add this asset to my assets in Behance. Oh, it has to be a URL. Well, they don't make it easy, do they? So I'll have to share this in some other way. But it is an ANA file. I will get this out through Twitter probably. So you can always find my Twitter at Joseph Lebrac. And, you know, if you want to play with this ANA, I'd like to see what anybody does with it. That'd be cool. You can reuse the creeper. This is a great way of actually going through and, you know, creating something inside of Adobe Fresco and rigging it up properly, coloring it, animating it, rigging it into an animate asset and being able to use that inside the assets panel, right? So you'd be able to find this inside your assets panel. All you need to do when you go through and if you download this ANA that I just created, you just say import, and then you locate the ANA file, and you'll be able to use that in any of your projects. So pretty cool. All right. That is basically all I wanted to show today. So it took a little longer. I figured this would be about a 30-minute session. Turned out to be about 45 minutes, which is fine. So as always, thank you for joining me. And if you're watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay. Go ahead and use Adobe Animate. Use the ANA file that I will eventually link to this in some way, or make available through my Twitter. Because, Animate is an underappreciated program as part of the Creative Suite, and I would love to see more people play with it. And I think it's excellent, great workflow, lots of creativity involved. You can do all sorts of stuff in here, drawing, animating, interactivity. You can actually build full games, applications, and things like that inside of Animate, if that's your thing, or you can just animate stuff. It's kind of up to you. So that'll be it for today. Have a nice evening, everyone, and I'll see you next week at some time. I'm not sure yet when.